Friends, it's Marie Pasiga. I just wanted to bring a quick message to you about field sobriety testing. It looks like I've got a halo above me right now, so we'll fix that. But, I've got an interesting case that made me think about, what I should be advising here and what I can kind of shout out to you guys. But my advice is if you're in a DUI situation, if you're stopped, and an officer is asking for field sobriety testing, that would be an eye test, walking the line, standing on one foot, those sorts of testing. You have the right to decline those, respectfully, of course, but you do have the right to decline. Do not take field sobriety testing. The reason I would say that is because they don't show a whole lot of anything, frankly, and they're usually videotaped, and so they're really good, trial material, and they show how impaired you must be, but they can really yield false positive results. And I've got a case scenario where that exact same thing happened to my client. I represented a gentleman. Here's the scenario. He was in a car accident, a bad car accident, and police were called. And one of the officers responding started to think that my client might be under the influence. He gave him a breathalyzer that came back all zeros, so there's no alcohol on board. But he had noticed some things about the eyes, the pupils were constricted, and then he noticed some marks like on the mouth that made him think that something was going on with my client. He was under the influence of some sort of drugs. So my client was taken out for field sobriety testing. They did the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. That's the eye test where you go back and forth and look for bouncing in the eyes. They did the 6 out of 6 clues, by the way. So the eye test fail. There was a walk and turn test where my client had to try to walk on the line and do a turn and come back, and my client nearly fell over. And then there's always the classic one leg stand test. And of course, my client failed that also. He couldn't keep his foot in the air for more than a couple of seconds without putting it down. So by all accounts, the field sobriety test says, my client is under the influence of something. And so in this scenario, the officer brought in an expert, a drug recognition expert, to try to figure out what is going on with this guy. And lo and behold, I reviewed the police reports in the case and recognized the name. It's a trooper that has the special certification as a DRE, that's a drug recognition expert. Well known, he shows up in a lot of police reports. And this trooper goes through the whole process of, what DREs do with testing, a slightly different kind of testing than the normal field sobriety testing. But the conclusion is that my client is under the influence of a CNS stimulant. So he's high on something that's, stimulating him and constricting the eyes, and he's drugged up. So they take all of that information and they put it into a search warrant application and go through the hoops to get a judge to sign off on a warrant, and they get a warrant for my client's blood. They get him to the hospital and they get his blood. So lo and behold, my client is charged. The prosecutor moves forward and charges my client with being under the influence while driving, okay? And he's got a court case. Meanwhile, they didn't kind of wait to see what the blood test said. So BCA is doing their job. They're very busy. But finally, the test result comes back, and I had demanded that they produce that because my client was saying, listen, I don't take drugs. I was not under the influence. This is impossible. So I demand the evidence. Finally, after going to court twice, we finally get this test result, and lo and behold, zero. No alcohol, no nothing. Squeaky clean test result from the BCA. And of course, the blood test at the BCA is the gold standard for testing. So moral of the story is you don't have to take field sobriety testing. You're not going to be told that. An officer will just assume that you're going to cooperate with field sobriety testing, so you can respectfully decline. And just know that if you do take them, they can often yield false positives and show things that aren't really there. And it can happen to the best of officers, ones that are very experienced in their work, that, testing like that just isn't reliable. So wanted to get that message out to you. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.